What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to talk about my strategy. My strategy, I've gone back and back tested this year over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trades, and it's wrong about 5% of the time and right about 95% of the time. I'm very confident in this strategy, but it's important because of the strategy, it's important to know when you're wrong so that you can adjust your risk accordingly. My strategy, simply put, if I was to tell someone in the elevator what it was, is I use fundamental research to short stocks that are up first day on news that I consider worth 0 to 10%, virtually nothing, and second day if large enough volume ranked first day. I'll hold 3 to 5 days for a full fade if the stock doesn't have constant pump PRs. So that's my shorting strategy. How I execute my strategy is I assume the stock will fade to red or zero, so I aggressively short all pops, cover major weakness with a position size relative to the price where I'm wrong. I use technical analysis to determine that point where I'm wrong, in particular big volume days from the past, or key points the stock has held or sold, or pre-market highs of that day. I'll occasionally long when I believe shorts are on the wrong side. There is no edge short, and there is a clear edge long trend price action strong volume to support my thesis, or on a PR that I believe is worth long pump or can have good entry and is a prior runner and it's the right time of day for people to chase. Time frame of day is super important when trading. After 10:30 a.m., a clearly weak broken trend, I'll lower the price where I'm wrong. I use shuffle time 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. 9:30 to 10:30 are big moves, and typically after 10:30 to 11 a.m. stocks form bases and trend forms. So Monday there's FOMO, Friday there's short covering operator base. Price action feels a bit different. If the stock does feel wild, such as Kodak or SPI as references from the near past, then obviously I will trade this stock differently. But overall, to go over my strategy, I said, I use fundamental research to short stocks that are with no news. So I'm going to cover a couple stocks that are no news. I'm going to cover two different stocks. One stock I'm going to use technical analysis where it's clear technical analysis, and one stock where it has no technical analysis or virtually nothing. So the first stock that I'm going to talk about is Lizzie. So how do you decide where you're wrong in the trade? This stock had pump Chinese news saying it has some sort of honor or something like that, and started ripping up on pre-market highs. The stock was going, 350s, yada, yada, yada. I perfectly showed this chart so you guys would actually be able to see where the stock went. But I had to think about it as it started ripping past 350s. Where is this stock going to go? So I drew a line. Okay, 4 is interesting. 4.5, 5. Where is this? Where is this going to go? Right. So I found this one here mostly interesting. Where it formed a base before a big breakout around 5. It was up at 3.5. I thought, okay, 100%. 100% is reasonable. Honors, big pump news, market top, whatever. If it starts going 6, 7, that's a little bit out of my league. I'll just wait until later. So, 5 was my plan, and that's just kind of how I guessed and formed. Where's some lines where it was finding support before, support. Where did it try and then finally faded off? Resistance, support. So just kind of a $5 whole good area to do that. So my strategy is, I think this stock is worth 0. I'm going to short this versus 5. So I have to use size accordingly. So if it's at 3.5, then I have to make sure that I'm using pretty darn small size. So we're going to go back to October the 12th, and we're going to take a look at the chart. As you can see, stock was going up, pre-market, short a little bit, into the 4. My rule and strategy is to cover all weakness, shorted above this high here, shorted into 5, risking 5, never went to 5, continue to cover, short, cover into weakness, and then continue to short over VWAP, always strength, always shorting strength, always covering weakness into a weak open. And the stock continued to short over VWAP, cover all weakness. There was a massive squeeze here to 4.7, but again, my risk was 5, and continued to fade off after that, and I didn't really short anything. I just covered the weakness all day as it continued to go down. Again, after 10:30, I readjust my risk range to say, you know what, the stock looks done. This particular stock was still holding key levels 380s, 390s, so at that point I still would have had a risk of 5. But once it broke trend and it was down here after 11, that's where it's completely done. And I would think about starting in a little bit there again to resume my 3 to 5 day strategy fade. And it did actually, the stock did go back down to full fade, 230s. So it was worth 0. So that's using, there was no real technical analysis here, I wouldn't say. It's kind of confusing, right? There's nothing really to reference here. There's no volume at all. So a little bit more tricky. So let's take a look at one where a little bit more clear. You know, we've had some volume days, volume days, volume days, volume days. We've got some clear areas here where we think is resistance. So Excel shot up huge on a tiny insider buy, something I thought was news was worthless, but these kind of things have been running recently, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to short the stock. So, you know, I looked at this chart and I was like, okay, we've had a big volume day at 1.49. We've had a big volume day at 1.27. So if the stock gets over 1.27, so 130s pre-market, I'm interested. Then I have a trade. I have a solid trade. It's up above a big volume day, PR day on no news, going back to 0.80s. So I'm going to short if it gets over 1.3. But if it does get over 1.3 and it's short, where the heck is my stop? So I looked at this and I was like, okay, I'm going to use this guy as reference, 1.49, even bigger volume day. And so I'm going to say, you know what, 150s over under. I'm going to let it go over 150s, maybe 1.6 stop, and that's going to be my guide for the trade. So let's go in. Let's delve into. This was on October the 14th. October the 14th. I'm going to pull up the minute chart. And so, you know, this trade was a little bit straightforward, pretty easy, but as you can see, shot up here 120s. I was definitely salivating. It's up on 30-40% no news. I was like, ugh. But I, you know, didn't have a trade. I could have traded there even on the rules, but I really wanted to have a real trade. So it shot up 130s. I short as planned. Added 140s versus 150s over under. Never got my target price. Again, making your target price, you know, reasonable, 150s, 160s. Like, this is up on no news. Like, is it really going to go up 20%, you know, 150% on no news, like an insider buy, before, you know, like, so it's reasonable. 1.6 is very reasonable. If it goes above 1.6 and holds and grinds, then I'm wrong. Like, I think you will all agree with me. If you know anything about trading or short selling, then, you know, if it's grinding at 1.6 at, you know, around 8 a.m., then, you know, I'm probably wrong. It's probably going to go to 3 or something stupid. So that was my thesis. And so, you know, giving yourself reasonable room to work, small size, and then once you're confirmed that you're right, you know, 7 a.m. shuffle has failed, you can add a little bit. This is hard to add down here, so I didn't add anything down there, but it just faded back to red and 0.80s where I thought. So that is using clear technical analysis. And, you know, so that's how you would trade a stock, using technical analysis from the prior year and intraday. And then Lizzie was more of one where you're just like a little bit of guesswork. But the point of my strategy is to use, to set a point where you say, okay, I'm wrong if the stock goes up there to that point. And so you have that reference point. You're not sitting there sweating, you know, like some people would short here. Be like, okay, if it breaks this high, then I'm done. I'm out, right? And that's not only stressful, but, you know, a lot of the time you're going to get stopped out. So why would you short huge size here, probably emotionally covered here, mostly in here, for the same trade as me shorting tiny, right? Here, like full strength, tiny, and letting it work for you all the way. You're going to be right more often, and you're going to make the same amount of money more consistently. And that's just what I found. It's way less stressful, far less stressful. You're going to be right more, and it's going to be more consistent. And consistency and being emotionless is like the holy grail of trading. So, and that's what we're looking for. I want to show you guys though what happens when you're wrong. BDR, August, minute chart. What happened on August 19? I got taken for a bit of a ride, right? You're not always going to be right. I found my strategy. If you're good at making your wrong levels, strategy will work almost all the time. So BDR was up on small insider buy, shot up 90% on 7 a.m. and I was like, okay, what the hell? And so I short, right? And for strategy cover, short. Thought this was a stupid little stuff, fake move. I'm like laughing here, and just continued to cover a little bit. But I was holding most of it because the stock came from like 0.80 or something, and I was like, well, CEO bought 2K shares. Like, who cares, right? Meanwhile, you got to realize this is an interesting move, obviously manipulated, but it's a little hindsight. So short, covered, double bottom, began to be a little suspicious. So it's covered. I still had some size. But my average was up at 170s because I've been shorting at 190. Reshort, even added more, 176, recovered into the 150s, really open. And then, it opened and there's, this stock has never had volume. The stock has never had volume above like 100K shares. And suddenly it's like 1 million, 1 million, or 2 million, 2 million. And it went above 2 and I was like, whoa. So my stop when I was shorting here, typically I like to add about 30 cents above a whole dollar mark if I have no reference at all on the chart. So I said 230s. I'm just gonna give my room at like 230s, like so 2 over under, but like at 230s I'd be freaking wrong. So shot up above the mark there, and I was like laughing, right? I'm like, okay, up 130%. So I added a little bit, making my average about 190s, and came down and sweet, up to 230. So at this point, I'm just getting stubborn. I'm just like, well, this is stupid. But it's at 230, so I was like, oh, okay, last ad, and but then consolidated, and as soon as it broke that level there, I took it off. I think 253. I had a stubborn like an all stop out, and I was wrong, guys. I was wrong on the trade. You do not, as part of my strategy, my strategy is not add all strength and cover weakness, assuming it's going to fade to 0. My strategy is know when you're wrong and short to that point. And then when you're wrong, get out. Because, as you can see, this is what happens when you're stubborn. And if I had added and added, probably would have emotionally covered towards 4 for a major loss. So I actually just got out, with an average of 2.2 at 2.5 for just a standard win-loss. And actually, when this thing had news that it, cracked or whatever, I was able to reshort this, at 240s, 280s, and the stock faded back to where it belongs. And I actually made money on this, so it was actually green. So you can always, that's the best part, even if you're wrong and it goes way up, you can actually reshort it and make money off of the trade. So just, reset, refocus if you're wrong, and get back in. Yeah, I wanted to show you, you can be wrong sometimes, and this is when you're clearly wrong. The stock went up 400% or 500% or whatever it is on a CEO buying 2K shares. So when you're wrong, you're wrong. But I went back and retested my strategy, and 90% of the time I was right. I'll go and I'll make a very reasonable wide stop and say, you know what, if it's there, I'm wrong. And just use small size, short only strength, cover weakness. And small size can be whatever your account is. If you have a 100K account, it could be 1K shares, it could be 5K shares. If you have a 5K account, it could be 100 shares. I don't know. But use what size works for you. Give yourself a wide stop. Be emotionless, be calm, and just get a ton of range out for every stock and be consistent and be right and build your confidence. And to me, this is what I'm going to be working on the rest of the year, and I'm super excited to work on the strategy, and I'll give you guys lots of feedback on how it's going, and just follow me for more tracking on this. So thanks for watching. I hope it helped you. I hope it gave you some ideas. Cheers.